Welcome to episode 342 of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijoma, and I thank you for joining me for this week's episode. And before I get into the conversation with my guest this week, if you would like to support the podcast, you can do so by going to convome.com/support. There you'll be able to buy me a coffee or two, or for additional perks, you can become a monthly supporter of the podcast. There's more information about that at convome.com/support. And now on to the episode. My guest this week is Chrissy Lane, and she runs the Etsy shop Bloomers Trading Company. And she has a very interesting genesis to how her Etsy shop came about. And in the time she's been running her Etsy store, she has accomplished so many things and quite a lot. I think it's quite impressive for something that started out really on a whim. And I'll let Chrissy tell the story herself. Chrissy, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ijama. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you. You have probably one of the more interesting genesis of your Etsy shop. Can you tell us when you started selling on Etsy and how you got onto Etsy, or why, I should say?
Sure. I was planning a move across the country. I was living in New York City for a number of years and was going to pack my car and drive to the other side of the United States.
Yeah.
So I had to get rid of a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I had to get rid of was this gigantic flower wall that I made for an event. It basically took up the whole side of the building. It was huge. It took up my whole apartment by the end of it. I put so much money into making it. I didn't just want to leave it behind or give it away. So I just started looking at how I might be able to quickly sell it. Mm-hmm. And, one thing led to another. And I ended up on Etsy. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not somebody who just does things and throws something up and says like, oh, I hope it works out. I really am someone who needs to know everything first and know all the details and plan all the things. So I spent a good month probably in between packing and working, really studying how to be successful on Etsy. And that's the beginning of the story, I suppose.
Yeah. Why did you pick Etsy as opposed to, say, eBay?
I don't know the answer to that question. I want to say it's because this has been about 4 years now. I want to say I probably found something that statistically showed that handmade goods were easier to sell on Etsy or mm-hmm. better to sell on Etsy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. It would have been a statistical thing for sure.
So you weren't kidding when you said you don't just jump in, you do your homework first.
That's right, yes.
Okay. So what do you make and sell on Etsy now?
I now exclusively make floral garlands for weddings and events, and I do a big holiday thing now. So it's just garlands.
Okay. When you first got onto Etsy, were you doing anything other than the garlands?
Well, I was trying to sell this flower wall. And I had decided early on to break it down into smaller flower walls. And then when that wasn't going so well, I began taking the flower panels apart mm-hmm. and making garlands for Christmas trees because it was right before Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
And I toyed with the idea of other things, flower crowns, bouquets, whatever it was. But I the garlands themselves, I could sell at a much higher price than all these other little things.
Yeah.
So that's why I decided on the garlands. Yeah, and also there was nobody at the time, and I'm not even sure if this has changed, but there was nobody at the time who was just doing garlands. People who were doing things with artificial flowers on Etsy were all doing bouquets.
Okay. So because you cater to both weddings and holiday garlands, does your inventory change based on the time of year? So like right now it's summer, it's, wedding season is upon us. So I imagine the wedding garlands will be in high demand right now. And then towards the year, not that weddings stop, but then holiday decorations pick up. And so do you kind of pivot towards the end of the year to do more of those, or is it pretty consistent year round?
Well, this has also changed. It in the beginning, I break it up into like the first 2 years and then these last 2 years, which have been pandemic years.
Mm.
So it's all different, right? But the first 2 years, I was just doing weddings basically all year until that first year I got to the holiday season, and I got there late because I didn't understand that online sales for Christmas really start in August and September.
Okay.
And and that first year, the demand for the Christmas stuff was so overwhelming that the next year I did a little earlier and then way earlier. So now I actually start doing holiday in June. I'm about to start actually.
In June. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. And it really has to do with supplies. Exactly. With supplies,
Okay.
because I have to order such a huge amount of supplies.
Oh.
It takes up so much space. So yeah, I do start winding down around this time and really focus my efforts towards the end of the year.
Okay. Do you actually start creating right now, or you just start stocking up?
I start stocking up now, and I'll start making as soon as I have everything.
Okay.
The earlier, the better.
Okay. That's impressive. How did you, and just so folks know, Chrissy started her Etsy shop in 2018. So when she says the first 2 years, that's 2018 to 2020. Then we had the pandemic, and now 2 years later. So that's the time span. How did you develop a system and to figure out, in June, this is how much I'm going to need for holiday sales coming up? And do you use any specific tools to help you calculate and make predictions as far as inventory and supplies?
Right. So here's what I did. That first year, I looked at what I sold for holidays. And then I also went back through my conversations and added in all the conversations from people who were asking me if I was going to get more or if I was going to restock.
Okay.
And that gave me a number. Let's, like, for a good round number, I'll say like 50.
Okay.
And so the next year I was like, I'm going to do 100 because I think I can sell it if I can make it fast enough.
Yeah.
And then I sold out of 100 so early that second year. By 2020, I said I'm going to order 200. So I just keep doubling it and starting it earlier and earlier. It's like as much as I can make is what I can sell. Seems to be what's going on.
Yeah. And so
it's still
far
4 years later. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, and so far, even though you've every year doubled what you do, have you ever hit a year yet where the season ends and you have leftovers?
No,
Wow, that's wonderful.
no, I sell out. This past year, 2021, I sold out in the beginning of November.
Whoa. So then what, did you take time off? Did you take the rest of the holiday season off?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Oh, good for you.
But it was
Good for you.
it was the it was the very first time in 3 years that I had any days off.
Yeah.
It was great. It was really good.
And because it was kind of an unplanned time off, were you concerned about finances during that time, that perhaps you wouldn't hit your financial goals, or be able to make your the regular income that you're used to? Or had you planned for that based on the inventory you had ordered, and the number of products you had intended to make, so it didn't really, it all balanced out?
Yeah, it all balanced out. I
Okay.
knew based on the previous year's statistics that I wasn't really going to get orders for wedding things
Mm-hmm.
in December anyways. So taking time, and when I say take time off, I didn't go into vacation mode or anything like that. I just cleared out my shop. There was just nothing in my shop for a couple weeks.
Wow, that's nice. That's
But yeah,
a nice way to end the year.
it was really nice. It was actually really hard to start back up again.
Yeah, that's the downside of taking a vacation or taking time off. And for context, Chrissy, one of the things that's really impressive about what you're doing on Etsy is that in your shop, and again, for anyone who wants to check out Chrissy's store, it's Bloomers Trading Co. And I will have links in the show notes for this episode. But if you're on your phone and you want to check it out right now, that's the shop name to search for. Chrissy right now has just 6 products in her store, which goes against what I feel is the common, one of the more common, I don't know what the word is, but things that you hear in the Etsy community about how to get more sales. You hear people say, stock up, keep your inventory levels high, because then you give the Etsy search algorithm more chances to send people to your store if you have more and more and more. But in your case, that just flies in the face of that advice. How has it been for you with having such a limited product line? Have you found that there are times where you struggle to get sales? And have you ever been tempted to add more products to your store to, quote, give the search engine more reasons to send people your way?
Right. I The first 2 years, I think I had 20 or 25 products in my store.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I've dwindled it down to such a low number is because the same 6 things are what was selling the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would get an order for one of the other items that I didn't make every day,
Mm-hmm.
it would be really overwhelming because I wouldn't know, I potentially wouldn't have what I needed to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be like running to the craft store in the middle of the day trying to find something, you know.
Yeah.
Um, it was taking up a lot of my time and energy to make that one-off thing that somebody ordered
Yeah.
randomly. So no, I don't find that dwindling that number down has affected my sales whatsoever, because I was always just kind of selling those 6 things.
Yeah.
And also what I will say, and I don't know if this is just the way that I shop, if I'm doing it wrong or whatever, but when I find something on Etsy, I use Etsy search and I find what I'm looking for, and I don't really go into that person's shop very much. I don't find myself going into somebody's shop. I actually find myself getting lost a lot. Like, wait, where am I? Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that I mean, I don't really know, but I would guess that most of my sales come from just going, finding it in search and buying it. And how many of those people actually go into my shop? I don't think it's that many.
Yeah. I agree with you on that, because when I look at what what sells the most in my shops, they are completely unrelated, and and I really do feel like people land on those products because they looked for them, they landed up on the listing and ended up buying it. I don't think they were surfing in my shop for everything there, because truth be told, there is no cohesion in, I'm thinking of a very specific Etsy store. There's like no common thread. And so the things that sell are very disparate, which makes me want to agree with what you're saying, that people are looking for that thing, they find the thing, they buy the thing, but they're not looking for my store. They're not shopping my store, I should say.
Right. And I also think that maybe I don't want to say, I don't know. I maybe 10 years ago, when Etsy was viewed as more of an artisanal craftsman thing,
Yeah.
and with artists making everything, maybe it was more so then, but now, I sometimes I think that people think they're on Amazon. Like they, and like when you, for example, when you are on Amazon, how many times do you go into that seller's shop? I don't even know how to do that.
Yes.
Right.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so true. I never go into individual shops on Amazon. If I see what I'm looking for, I click on it.
Right.
Yeah, but you're right. Some of those are I guess privately owned stores, like people are behind them.
Yeah, I think most of them.
So you would say that you attribute most of your success to studying SEO. Now, do you apply the principles of SEO? And for anyone who's listening that doesn't know what that is, SEO stands for search engine optimization. Do you apply those principles only within the Etsy search ecosystem? Well, not Etsy search, but within the Etsy ecosystem, or do you apply SEO principles more globally so that you can be found outside of Etsy, and draw that traffic into yourself? I hope that makes sense the way I asked it.
It makes perfect sense, and I giggle a little because this has been an issue for me as of late.
Mm-hmm.
I apply SEO globally. I do it so, yes, it's optimized for Etsy specifically, but also, and maybe it's, again, it's just my product. There's only so many things you can call a garland. So I don't have like a huge list of keywords to choose from. But a lot of my early success I attribute to being found on Google Shopping.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's only kind of contentious as of late, since Etsy has implemented the Etsy ads policy, where you can't opt out, because now all of my traffic that comes from Google Shopping, I'm being charged that 15% or 12% or whatever it is ad fee attached to it, when my sales were coming from there in the first place.
Oh, I see.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
So now if you search for something on Google and it comes up in Google Shopping, a lot of the times you'll see two of my products side by side. One will be because of my SEO, and then the one next to it will be because of Etsy ads. So just depending on whichever one somebody clicks on, I'm losing 15% of that sale every time now.
I always wondered why I saw that. I've seen that happen before, where I'll see an Etsy listing twice in that top bar on Google, And I
Right.
wondered why is that person showing up two times, like not either right next to themselves or not far off for them from themselves. And now it makes sense. And my
But it's the
guess,
same thing in Etsy search. If you
well,
search for something in Etsy search and they have an ad for it, a lot of times that product is on that same page.
oh yes, 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 I've seen that as well. Yeah, very
Hmm.
true. I've wondered, why does the advertiser just not stop advertising? Because obviously they're ranking organically.
I don't know.
So,
I don't know. I
yes,
have that question too.
yes.
But yeah, with Google Shopping, for example, I don't have a choice.
Yeah, no, you don't. And so my guess is, I wonder, most people, I have no idea if this is true, but I'm just guessing that most people might click on the first instance of the listing they see. And then I wonder if Google puts the Etsy ad before their own organic shopping link because they're going to make money from that click, as opposed to their
Right.
own shopping link, which they won't make money from. And then you end up
That's exactly
paying.
right. I do. And I did the math on it from the
Mhm.
time that this new policy was implemented, and my sales are down just about 15%. Go figure. Yeah, it's so frustrating.
Wow, that is, well, I tell you. So in a situation like that, you're the, I would say, ideal target or candidate to get angry at Etsy for doing this, to not give you an option for this, and to, like some people have done, just leave the platform altogether. What's keeping you on Etsy? And have you had those thoughts and those, have you mulled that over and struggled with that?
No, I don't struggle with that. I've never thought about leaving Etsy. I think just because I know that the alternative is nothing. Basically, there's really not another place for my product
Mm-hmm.
on the internet to be as successful as it is on Etsy.
Yeah.
I've just tried to work with it, so to speak. It's really hard to price your products with this notion of potentially you'll need to mark them up 15% sometimes. I mean, you can't do
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't want to mark everything up 15% because my price points are already kind of on the high end.
Mm-hmm.
I just, yeah, I just, I'm just taking a little bit of a hit here and there and then making up for it where I can.
Yeah. Okay. And
But no,
that
I've
makes
never thought
sense.
about leaving it.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I know some people see having an e-commerce site of their own as an option, which, for some it is, but it does have its own costs, and perhaps the 15% you save in ad fees, you might pay for hosting fees and
Right,
and ads ads of your own to drive traffic to that website. So in some
right.
situations it's a wash.
It's a wash,
Yeah.
exactly.
So talking about pricing, how did you determine what to charge for your garlands, and has that changed over the years?
Oh yeah, that's changed a lot. Well, so at first when I was just trying to get rid of this flower wall, I was pricing it to sell. I wasn't pricing it to make a profit. I was really pricing it to get it out of my apartment and just to have that cash as opposed to that stuff to take with
Mm-hmm.
me on my trip. Um, and that was one of the biggest mistakes I've made this whole time, I think, because when I when excuse me, when you price your items so low from the beginning
Mm-hmm.
and your product takes off kind of quickly, it's really hard to just put a full stop to that and double, triple, or quadruple your prices out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I have had to gradually, over the span of probably 2.5 years, raise my prices. And it's been a really interesting experiment because where, yes, I don't do as many sales now that my prices are higher. I still make the same amount of money,
Yeah.
which is great. But it was, you know what it was at first? It was a huge bruise on my ego when when I was raising prices and then getting less sales because I was really attributing my quote unquote success to how many orders I would get at a
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
when those orders start down and down and down, like psychologically, I was like, oh my gosh, this is not going well. But at the end of the day, it's fine.
Yeah. And do you think when looking at the numbers that selling a lower quantity but at a higher price, you still made out better than selling a higher quantity but at a lower price?
I was working myself to the bone
Mm-hmm.
trying to get orders made when I was getting so many at once. I mean, I was not sleeping for 2 or 3 days in a row sometimes
Whoa.
trying to get everything done. It was really overwhelming. And I was so overwhelmed that I couldn't even figure out how to hire somebody to help me
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that there's probably a middle ground somewhere in there, and I might be kind of there now, but um, definitely work less and make more
Yeah.
is optimal.
Yes. At what point, Chrissy, did you know this is it? I know that this can become my sole occupation, and then feel comfortable leaving everything else behind to just do this?
I think so. Before I was doing this, I was bartending, and that was just something that I had been doing for so long. I'd never even really thought about doing anything else. Um, and then I made that big move across the country. And when I planted myself, um, I just thought like, I'm going to really give Etsy a go. I'm really going to like work it like it's my full-time job and see what happens. And that first month, I made rent. I made my enough to pay the bills, and it really just never stopped from there. So I don't, I never really, it wasn't really a choice. It just
It
happened.
just happened. Yeah. And oh, there's something else I was going to ask you about pricing. Because you cater to both the bridal market or slash wedding industry and then just regular home decor, do you have different price? And did I ask this already? Do you have different pricing strategies for the different groups, or it's the same regardless?
It is, well, so how my pricing works is everything that I sell at different lengths. So everything,
Okay.
you can buy anything for 3 feet, 6 feet, 9 feet, 12 feet, 15 feet, it goes up like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really just price everything based on how much it takes me to make it.
Mm.
and it ends up kind of all being about the same. I think everything in my shop is priced within like $10 of everything else.
Okay. Okay. Now, because the two main industries you serve were impacted by the pandemic, how did that impact your business?
Right. At the beginning of 2020, when the pandemic started and we were all at home and all that stuff was going on, I call 2020 the year of returns. I was getting so many returns because people were like, are we going to get married? Are we not going to get married? Are we going to postpone? Are we not going to postpone? And I was just like, I just work way too hard to have to return all this money, and then I have all this stuff sitting here, and I don't, nobody knew what was going on. It's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to sell this again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when the big holiday bright idea hit me to start in the middle of the year, because it was the first time that I had had sort of a break from all the orders. And I thought, you know what? Everybody is literally at home. I should focus on the home stuff, because who knows if people are going to get married ever again.
So grim.
I know, it really was.
Okay, so then you decided to hone in on everyone at home. Did that change how you did? Well, I guess it would change like your SEO, because the keywords and the market you're targeting changed as well, right?
Right. And floral home goods on Etsy is a very highly competitive marketplace on Etsy. There are just so many people doing it that I really didn't have the advantage like I had in weddings. So what I decided to do was just manifested this big holiday season, and I was like, if I order it, they will buy it, you know. So I took that initial hit, and you know, I just said like, okay, I'm not going to get as many orders for wedding stuff going forward. Say we're in June, right? Like, I'm not going to get as much wedding stuff going forward, but if I focus all of my energy and efforts just to getting all of the holiday stuff made right now while I have the time, it will sell. And I just operated off of that hope, and it did. And in 2020, my holiday sales were, I think, 75% of my annual revenue.
Oh, wow.
Right. Which is not normal.
That is wild.
But I had this intuition that, you know, if I could only make more, I could sell more.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing last year, and it has really worked out for me.
Yeah. It's like you have a really good business sense already just coming into this. I mean, well, first with...
I don't know.
What? Sorry, what did you say, Chrissy?
I was going to say, I don't know how. I have no experience.
Well, for some people, it's just... it's natural. It's intuitive to you. And some just struggle, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So,
I think it helps when you have nothing to fall back on.
Yes, that too. Knowing that you have to, it just has to work, I think gives you a different perspective about how you approach what you're doing. Because if you have options, then
right.
It's different.
It makes you much more careful.
Yeah.
Much more, what's the word? Calculating. Much more calculating.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that being in the market that you're in, that you tend to face is competition, but not just competition from other makers. We know over the last few years, you know, Etsy has become flooded with manufacturers of, you know, non-handmade products that, you know, are on the platform. Has this directly impacted you, and how do you handle it?
Yeah. So when I am shopping for inventory, I come across, you know, the artificial flower scene is not huge. So you come across a lot of the same things over and over and over again. You start to recognize, I start to recognize when things that I've seen on Alibaba, for example, are showing up on Etsy. So I'm like, wait a second.
Oh.
I could, yeah, it's like things, pre-made floral arrangements that you can buy overseas at an extremely discounted price. And then, you do the markup and you resell. I mean, it's like any other product, you mark it up and resell it. That has flooded the floral wedding industry on Etsy. I would guess to say like 80% right now of the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating because I know what it is and they know what it is, but nobody else knows that if they just go on a different website, they can buy that same thing for 90% less. And those manufacturers have the ability to make and sell so many more products because they're not hand making them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, do you ever use the track your competition thing on eRank?
No.
Okay. So I've started putting these shops into that feature on eRank, and you can see they get like 20, 30 sales a day. And if you look at it, it's like they have a turnaround time of 1 to 3 days, which is not humanly possible if it's not manufactured. So it's taken, I think that alone has taken a big chunk of my sales.
How is their pricing? Is it compatible or rather comparable? Or do they undercut?
Right. Yeah, because there's, they can make everything a lot faster and they can get the materials a lot cheaper. And, if you have a machine putting things together, or if you have a team of 30 people putting things together, you can really pump stuff out. And I do find that having that shorter window, 1 to 3 days, or I don't know what the other one is, like 3 to 5 days or whatever it is, that is really useful in this industry specifically, because a lot of people are like last minute shoppers and they need something by a specific date.
Yeah.
And I've been on like a 2 to 3 week wait from the very beginning. So yeah, I think that they've taken quite a bit away. And it's hard too, because, and I don't really look at the competition. I don't sit there and seethe and get all angry. It's just, stuff that I've noticed from time to time. But you will see in the comments, like, thank you so much. This is perfect. It's so wonderful to have this custom thing. And you're like, no.
So what do you do to set yourself apart, or to set your products apart? Do you focus more on the fact that yours are handmade, or is there something else you do to try and distinguish between what you're making and selling and what they're doing?
I think the answer to this question is, because I am such a neurotic planner, I've spent so many hours. I've spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours looking for like the perfect materials that really reflect a natural product. Because like me myself, I'm not particularly an artificial flower and foliage person. I don't tend to like that look, that style of things. So I spent just an abnormal amount of time creating products that look really, really, really natural.
Okay. How about marketing? What's your favorite vehicle for marketing your products? And actually, I should even ask, do you do any marketing, like offsite, social media, or content marketing, where you're blogging about maybe wedding related topics that eventually lead back to your store?
No. And um, I was too busy for too long. I couldn't fathom getting more orders at a certain point, and I never wanted to go on vacation mode, and I never wanted to make that wait time so much longer than it already was. And so, and my products, they're not quick to make. So, if I have to make 5 orders in a day, I'm looking at like 12, 14 hours just hand making things that day. I really didn't have time at a certain point to go deeper into these areas that you would go into after you kind of got your footing with things. Right. And then, I did put a little bit of effort into Pinterest at first, because I think that that's where a lot of brides and grooms go for looking at wedding things. But other than that, no.
Is that something you feel now that you need to do, or are you comfortable with the way things are and everything is working?
Yeah, everything is working. And I also, and this is going to be different for probably everybody else, like literally everybody else, but I, from the beginning, always kind of saw my products as more of an artistic item as opposed to a product. And I think that when you're searching for art, you really don't want to see that item saturated around the internet, because it makes it less special, I think.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I kind of gone that route.
Okay. Now, because you carry such a limited product line, and you only carry what's already working, what's already selling, do you envision down the road ever introducing new items just to see if they'll take off, or are you comfortable with where things are, and this is where you want them to stay?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have like a compulsive need to make new things. Whenever I find something like really beautiful, like a really beautiful flower that I can get a lot of at the right price, I always buy it, and then I get really busy, and then that just sits in my studio staring at me for the rest of the year, and I'm like, why did I buy that? I don't have time to make it.
Yeah.
And then and for me also, because I'm not, I do some things well, but I'm just like the worst photographer. I don't know how to take a picture no matter what. So actually, like, taking photos for new listings is so stressful for me, and it takes me forever. It literally takes me like 3 or 4 weeks to figure out how to get one listing to look right. So yeah, I love making new things, and I want to introduce new things all the time, but it's really like a time thing.
Yeah. Well, for someone who says she doesn't, photography is not your thing, I know one of your products, the wedding arch with the eucalyptus, is an Etsy pick.
Yeah.
And
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that they like to pick things that are, aesthetic and displayed nicely, and, just add to that, to the Etsy look. So I think you're doing a really good job with your photography, and I think Etsy thinks you are too. So don't knock yourself for that.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, that took me a month to make that one photo.
Oh, wow. Did you
and because I want everything to be cohesive, so now I have to make every new thing look like those other things.
Yeah.
It's just difficult.
When speaking about having a product that's an Etsy pick, when it becomes a pick, how do you become aware of that? Do you just notice the uptick in sales, or you don't know until
You
you see
literally
it?
just told me.
Oh,
I
you
literally
didn't know
didn't know until
this.
No, I had something that was an Etsy pick maybe a year ago. It's not that same item.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know like when it stops being an Etsy pick
Yeah.
either.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I don't know, but thank you for letting me know.
Well, congratulations on that. So then the next
Thanks.
question won't apply, because I know people always want to know, what do I need to do to catch the eye of the editors? Is it my photography? I mean, first of all, product first.
It's your photography.
Yeah,
No, it's your photography.
I do think it's your photography. And and I read this in one of their newsletters, and for anyone who doesn't know, and maybe, well, your products are great to begin with, so this might have no bearing on that, but the Etsy color of the year, for anyone who doesn't know, is emerald green, and pretty much all your
Oh,
pictures have
right.
emerald green. And so for
I
anyone,
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. So for anyone who is trying to catch the eye of the Etsy editors, maybe create a product or list something that uses their color of the year, because they did say that, because that's their color, they're going to highlight more items that are in line with their color of the year. And the color of the year changes every year, but this year it's emerald green. So there you go.
I think that's right. And you know what? I just remembered you saying this. I believe it was 2018. It was my first year on Etsy, and I could be wrong, but I believe you made a very similar announcement. And I
Oh,
was
really?
listening to your podcast, and the color was, it was a yellow,
Okay.
like a mustard yellow,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, right?
Uh,
And I made a fall item out of that mustard yellow, and I still sell that every year because it was so popular that year.
nice.
So I wonder if I was an Etsy pick that year too because of that color. I don't know.
Maybe you just might have, because so the thing with Etsy is they leave these clues that,
Yes.
if you don't pick up the clues, you miss, you miss the moment. And
Right.
and they reward people for picking up their clues, and some of them are really nebulous and some of them are a bit clearer. But yeah, I think I have no scientific proof about this, just my observations. So yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And what I don't understand is why it's such a treasure hunt to find the clues. Like, why don't they just
Yeah.
tell you?
So I feel it's kind of like that. There's this guy who hid some treasure. I don't know if you know about this. He passed away not too long ago, and somebody actually found it, a treasure
Yeah,
box.
I know exactly who you're talking about because he lives in Santa Fe.
Yes, yes. I thought you might.
Right.
Yes, and
Yeah.
he left the clues like out in the open. If you could just solve the riddle, you would find the treasure box. And I feel like Etsy is kind of like that, or plays that way. Like, we're telling you all these things, and just,
You just have to open your
yeah,
eyes,
you just have to
right?
open your eyes. Yes.
But here's the problem with the guy with the treasure boxes. A lot of people died looking for that treasure.
That was, yes, that was the other thing, was, yes, that it was tragic. Actually, it was, yeah, that
Yes.
people died looking for it. And yeah, people lost their lives, their minds, just trying to find it. It kind of became like a cruel game in the end. So I was happy when somebody found it, although I don't know, I'm
But
sometimes.
I kind of feel the same way about Etsy. Like I'm gonna lose my mind looking for these clues.
No, don't. You're doing just fine on your own. Now,
Thank
Chrissy,
you.
what are, or maybe not multiple or one or two, however many you want to share, lessons about selling on Etsy that you feel you learned the hard way and can save somebody that learning process that you had to go through?
Yeah, I guess number one is pricing.
Mm.
Um, Depending on your circumstances, the level of income you need to earn or want to earn. But actually, regardless of that a little bit, I'm going to just backtrack on all that.
Yeah.
Be responsible with your pricing, because just because you don't necessarily need that income, it really affects all of the other sellers around you who are trying to be competitive with you. Because if you have to be competitive with your pricing against somebody who is pricing incorrectly and who's pricing, for example, not to make a profit, you're creating this ecosystem where the other sellers are having to devalue their products. And by products, I mean their art, their crafts. So just mindful pricing, maybe, is what I'll say.
I like that. I like that term.
Yeah, just came up with it. And then I don't know. Yeah, I think what you just said is like, really pay attention to everything that Etsy sends you, because they're not sending it to you for no reason.
Yeah.
All of the holiday guides, all of the, spring guides, just even though there's not maybe necessarily your product listed in those things, in those publications, there are, like you said, like those little clues that can help you along the way. Like for example, if there's no garlands in the holiday guide, there certainly are color schemes, and there are like styles of things like Nordic or like aesthetics that are important to them. So you can really look and see not only what they are predicting will be popular, but like you said, like the items that they're likely to choose to advertise for you.
Yeah. Yes. I like that. For that person who, now for you, Chrissy, I kind of feel like your trajectory was kind of like a dream trajectory that most people, wish they had, where you come on the market and you hit it right away. But I know it wasn't purely coincidence, because you studied Etsy, you studied the market, you came in with a plan. What advice would you give to someone who right now is struggling? They already have a product in hand, but it's maybe not as successful as they would like.
Right. Number one is go to eRank or Marmalade or whatever platform you choose, and make sure that product is high search and low competition. And that's really like the very beginning, what you have to do. And it's like, I'm so sorry, it's going to be really devastating if it's not. If nobody's searching for it and there's a lot of competition, unfortunately, it just mathematically, it's probably not going to work out. But there are ways that you can alter anything to kind of fit into another category. You just really have to think about it. So number one is you got to have the right product. And then from there, I would say, maybe nothing from there. You just really have to have the right product and really put in the time as if it is your full-time job. Because if you want it to be your full-time job, I mean, these are like the laws of, what's it called? The laws of attraction, or like just the metaphysical universe. You have to act as if you already have the thing that you're searching for. So if you are putting in that time as if it were your full-time job, then your chances of it becoming your full-time job are much greater. Make sense?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yes. I was going to say
Okay.
it really does. Like if you treat something the way you want it to be, the chances of it becoming that are higher.
Right. And it can be really discouraging when you put in a lot of time in the beginning and it doesn't work out. But
Mhm.
there's like this really great Einstein quote, that I don't want to say wrong, but it's something like, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that got you in, that started the problem in the first place,
Yeah, yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So it's like you really got to change the way that you think about whatever the issue is. Say you do that. Say you do this search and you do have a highly searched product with low competition, but still you're not getting anywhere. It's like, okay, well then what's next? It's probably your SEO.
Mm. Mhm.
Just whatever you've been doing that hasn't been working, don't hang on to that. Just try something new.
Let that go. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, I agree, and I think that's really good advice, is because especially being creative people, we get so entangled with our thing, the thing you've made, and the thought that somebody doesn't want it, or that you've poured so much creativity and time into this thing and nobody wants to pay for it is a hard pill to swallow. But sometimes you just have to realize that, yeah, maybe nobody wants that thing. So either make it into something else that they do want, or offer what people actually do want,
Right.
start
Well, I
from
just think,
scratch.
yeah, I think back to the flower wall. I think when I was first looking at the SEO, it was in high demand, but it also had a lot of competition.
Mm.
So I just went from there, like, okay, what else can I make with these flowers that I already have? And that's the story.
Yeah. Now, speaking of tools, you mentioned that you used eRank. Are there any other tools that you've found particularly helpful for running your Etsy business?
I've used both e-rink and Marmalade.
Okay.
However, I'll say this: I pay for Marmalade. I don't necessarily use it. I don't know why I don't let it go. I just like, it's
Uh-huh.
one of those things where I'm like, I'm a little nervous to let it go
Uh-huh.
because I never ever ever use it. And the reason for that is, and this is so strange, but those two sites give you different numbers for
Yeah.
SEO, and it's like they're both coming from the Etsy API, so that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I do. And I read an article about that, and I don't remember where or who, but the person was postulating that they actually either they look at different metrics or they process the metrics differently. Now, I don't have Marmalade. I don't use Marmalade. I use Sales Samurai, and I have eRank, and I've compared the numbers. And actually,
Mm-hmm.
Sales Samurai and eRank give you, even though they express the outcomes, or they express their numbers differently, they actually match up pretty similarly. Like if
Okay.
there's a keyword and it says, it has roughly this many searches and this many results, or this much competition, each of those sites express it differently, either results or competition.
Right.
They both will, they both, from the comparisons I've done, they both are closely aligned, in that I'll look at the same keyword in each of them, and they essentially tell me the same thing, you know roughly about the same amount of searches and competition. Like, I've never looked at
Yeah.
a keyword in both, and one has said it had, high searches and low competition, and the other one said something different. So those two
Mm-hmm.
kind of seem to match up to me. I mean, from
Mm-hmm.
my unscientific research into this.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah,
marmalade,
we
I
keep like
haven't compared.
quantifiers that we're not data analysts.
Huh?
And we keep like quantifying, like we're not scientists here, but this is how it works for us.
No,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
and I've tested it, and that's the thing is I have changed my keywords on items that weren't selling very well,
Mm-hmm.
and just used marmalade stats, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and it's either gotten worse. I don't want to say it's like it hasn't worked out with marmalade, is all
Yeah.
I'm saying. And then I go back to E-Rank, and it pops right back up.
Yeah. And actually you just
So
answered my next question was, based on how you respond to the information you get from either, which of them gives you better results, and well, there you
yeah,
have it.
right. And also I will say the best keywords that I do find work for my product,
Mm-hmm.
they're not necessarily like all like green across the board. It's not necessarily like the highest searches and the lowest competition,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of times it'll be like fairly high searches and very low competition. I think if you focus more on the competition side,
Mm-hmm.
it actually works out better than just looking at how many people are searching for it and doing that combo together.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see if I can rephrase this to see if I understand. So you can get more sales if you sell something where there are fewer people selling, even if
There are fewer people searching.
there are fewer people searching. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes
Right, because
sense.
those few people that are searching haven't found it anywhere else, and it probably isn't anywhere else if there's no competition for it.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So they find it and they buy it.
Yes. Okay. So take home point is try and sell where there's less competition, even if it means
Yeah.
so don't always aim for the things that everybody is looking for, because
Right.
there might just be a small niche or a small pool of people looking for something, and but not enough people are catering to them. So aim for those ones, aim for those people. So maybe you don't make 20 sales a day, maybe you make 11 or 9.
Correct.
Okay. I like that. That's another way to approach growing on Etsy is, um target the things that people are overlooking, go for those.
Right. Yeah. I think especially with wedding things, people already kind of just automatically have an idea of what they want something to look like
Mm-hmm.
before they've even started searching for it.
Yeah.
I want a big white and pink wedding or whatever.
Yes.
A big 80s pink wedding. So, that person is probably not, I'm not going to say all the time, but probably not going to deviate very far from that original thought
Idea.
and
Yeah.
see a really beautiful product that you might have, but it's just not what they're looking for. So, yeah, I would just say cater to those things.
Yeah. And I think one of the most important things you said, just as we wrap this up, was, and this might not be, these might not be your exact words, but the idea was sell what people are looking for. And and that was how you came onto the platform, was you did your research to see what people were looking for that there wasn't a lot of supply of, and then filled that niche. And I think it makes a difference when you do that, which will require keyword research. And I think in a lot of cases for people who are struggling, just going back to the drawing board and within your niche, within your specialty, your craft, what you can do, find something that people are looking for that perhaps you didn't know that people would want, and maybe, segue into that to start to get some sales. Sell what people want, not necessarily just what you want to sell.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like I said before, I am not personally a decorator. Like I don't have floral goods strewn about my house. Well, I do because it's my work and it's all over the place, but but that doesn't necessarily mean that other people don't want it.
Yeah.
Just because it's not your style.
Yeah, exactly. Chrissy, do you have any Etsy shop shout outs?
Oh, what a question. Etsy shop shout outs.
Yeah.
Not right this moment, but I will in about a week.
Okay. All right. Well, I like that because
Yeah, I have a very good friend who I've finally, after years and years and years, I've convinced to get on Etsy, and I'm helping her set up her shop, but I don't want to say it yet because I don't know if she's ready. Okay. So I'll hold back.
Okay. So if you would like to know Christy's friend's mystery shop, when you hear this episode, go to convome.com and look for the show notes and you'll see it listed there. I like it, kind of like a mystery.
Yeah, it's like all part of the treasure hunt.
Yeah. Chrissy, what's the best way folks can connect with you if they have questions or they want to carry on this conversation or perhaps even want to buy a garland?
Yeah, you can bloomerstradingco.com, which takes you directly to the Etsy shop, or you can convo me on Etsy, or you can hit me up on Instagram at Bloomers Trading Co. I will admit I'm like the world's worst social media user, so I might not get back to you for a while just because I don't have the notifications turned on. Or I also have an email at bloomerstradingco@gmail.com.
Okay. Yes. I don't know if anybody can be much worse at social media than me, but
No. I'm worse.
All right.
Not just because I don't have the time or I don't care to learn it. It's like the second one is right. I don't care to learn it. I don't want to use it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not really something you need. So that's a good thing for you.
That's right.
Chrissy, thank you so much for having this conversation, for sharing about your journey and, the struggles that you have and just showing resilience and sticking with it, even in the face of, I don't want to say adversity, but, facing things that as business owners we come up against. Thank you for sharing your story and just being a really inspiring example of an Etsy shop and an Etsy seller, someone who is making their full-time living on Etsy. And it's encouraging. And I hope, I hope, but I also know that just hearing your story will be encouraging to someone else, and the advice that you gave to just keep forging ahead.
Thank you. That's really touching. Thank you.
You are welcome. And I thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you have enjoyed this conversation and you would like to hear more like these, I want to ask two things of you. One, please reach out to me if you would like to be my guest on the podcast. You can do that by going to convome.com and just click on the Be My Guest tab. Also, if you would like to hear more of these types of conversations, please consider supporting the podcast. You can do that by going to convome.com/support and by buying me a, what's the word? Proverbial coffee. That's not the word I was looking for, but virtual coffee. That actually helps to support the podcast and everything that it takes to keep this podcast up and running. And of course, I appreciate that too. And I will be back with another episode next week.